AzraelHobbes.
Welcome, everyone, to the Lynx at Fort Dragonia Losers Bracket semifinals match. We have AzraelHobbes versus CorporateImage. And for commentary, we have PH112358, Dot Cobran, and AG Dietz. For anyone that wants to follow the bracket, exclamation point bracket will lead you to how the tournament is shaped up so far. For anyone that doesn't know much about this run, exclamation point links 2 will explain the goal of the run. It is basically the community's intro / race category. So we'll be going to when Serge turns into Lynx. It's about 2.5 hours, so everyone strap in. And without further ado, we'll let the runners get ready. So we'll do a countdown on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good luck, runners.
Good afternoon, everybody. First thing we'll be checking is who they get. First piece of RNG here, we've got Orcha versus Mel.
Ooh.
It's family. It's a family affair. All right, so we're going to start off here in the dream sequence. What Doc is talking about is that it is actually technically random. You have a roster of, I think it's like 12 to 14 characters that you can receive. There aren't really significant differences between the two, but technically the characters like Mel with shorter names are slightly faster, but we're talking fractions of a second. But you never know what can make a difference. So,
Sometimes
a little bullied there by the Cybot too.
Sometimes it's not necessarily the name length, but like some characters like Pasha will even add more characters to the text itself as well. But again, doesn't really impact too bad.
Yeah, that's true. So there's really not a whole lot to this opening sequence. The biggest thing is you're trying to avoid getting caught by any of the various handful of enemies that are wandering around. The biggest dangers there you'll see are the bats.
Bats are the worst in this game. The most veteran of runners can still run into a bat.
Oh yeah, their movement is, so like everything else in this game, their movement is highly random, where they start on the screen and then how they move towards you and when they act. So when they aggro isn't random, but kind of like how much they're associated directly to you is, like everything else, very randomized. So, you know, just got to deal with it. Both of them got through without too much incident, and we're going to get a little bit of a cutscene here that is definitely not foreshadowing anything at all. Right. And yeah, as Andy says, Troll 1 goes to Corporate. Some runners like to keep track of you know, the degree of we'll call it like unfairness counters. I think they term it differently on their streams, but we'll say. Yeah, exactly, Zan. Bad skip. Which of the contestants is a better singer? Oof. I think honestly that would be like saying, I believe it's like Hobbs would be more like, you know, kind of Michael Jackson, and Corp is more like Freddie Mercury. I think that's basically the quality level they're both at, but I'm not positive. So I'm not sure you could really pick between the two.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Right. Okay, so as we get into the first start of the run here, we're going to be doing a little bit of purchasing really quickly, just kind of getting some information about where we need to go from our girlfriend Lena. She is going to give us a little bit of direction here, thankfully. After that, we're going into kind of the first combat section, but we're going to start here in Arnie, which is the lovely little sleepy seaside town that our protagonist, normally named Serge, resides in. And so you can see he's getting ready for his day, big stretch. And we do have to dodge his mom and their cat. So everything in this game is RNG, even how much movement you have to do to avoid getting stuck on the family pet. There's no avoiding it.
I don't know, it's nice to give your mom a little hug on the way out the door.
Yeah. So they actually both got really, that's funny. They both
that
got
was
basically
loud.
the same movement, and it's really good.
She's looking out
That's
the
great.
window both times. I swear every time I do it, she's always like walking straight at me, like every time. You always have to like curve out.
Like you said, she's just trying to, she's just trying to say good morning and get you started for the day. Yeah, so I do like to point it out. So one of the cool things about this game, spoiler alert, is we'll be switching between two different dimensions. It's kind of think It's a Wonderful Lifestyle, one where you unfortunately drowned a little bit when you were fairly young, and the other where you're obviously still alive. And there are small differences. You see that fisherman at the end of the dock there. And if you notice his hat, it's kind of like a brown beige color. And we'll be seeing a similar version of that gentleman here in the other world. And notice that the hat is slightly different color. The game loves to play with those kind of minor tweaks to try and show how you can tell the differences between the two worlds, even in certain like really small things. Also, so Disturbed Rabbit, yeah, as Dine was just saying in chat there, the estimate is around 2 hours, 20 minutes. Really, really, really fast times for a Lynx 2 run will be under about 2 hours, 10 minutes. That's like really starting to get into the very, very quick space. Both of these runners are excellent and often get like 2:15 or below, but anything, there's so much that can happen that's random. So times up into the 2:20 range are pretty common.
Yeah, especially in a race setting like this where we're not going to be resetting the games, based on stats or, running into encounters. So yeah, the 2:20 is still a reasonable time in a race setting like this, I would say.
Exactly. And so you can see to that end, kind of talking about the RNG there, the actual enemy formations matter quite a lot. You can see that Hobbes on the left had 2 of the kind of yellowish looking lizards. They're called Komodo pups. And that's actually what we want. On the right here, Corporate got 1 of them and then 2 of the blue looking lizards, which are called sand squirts. And that's a little bit unlucky. The Komodo pups have a chance to drop something that we need called a feather. If we don't get it, there is kind of a backup, but it takes a little bit of time. But it's also a faster fight when you have to fight 2 enemies instead of 3. And so a lot of the RNG in this early part of the game comes down to obviously like hits and misses matter, but also what kind of enemy formations we're going to get and what drops we get.
Yeah,
so this is actually a very clean opening here for Hobbes. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Deeds.
Oh no, you're good, you're good. It looks like both the log there, there's these beach bums that you can run into, and it looks like both players were able to dodge them successfully. However, we do want to at least fight one of these beach bums. They can appear in these Komodo encounters, not all the time, but they also give us a humor that we're also looking for to forge weapons later on. So it's kind of a decision between the runners. Do you want to fight the beach bums now and get it over with, or do you want a chance getting a beach bum within your Komodo encounters and getting lucky that way, or do you fight a bum later on at the Cape? And that's kind of the biggest, I would say, one of the bigger RNG factors with the early game in this race.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's what's really interesting about this run is how many different sort of decision points that you have to pick between there are, and that's what makes it kind of really interesting and fun in a lot of ways. It can also make it frustrating if you make a decision and then feel like you made the wrong decision depending. But yeah, so things like when do you want to take certain fights, how you want to go into those fights, or how you want to try and handle them. There's a lot of different strategies that we can employ, some of which are maybe a little more risky, but maybe a little faster, and so on. So for the start here, you can see that as an example, I think Hobbes on the left just used 3 level 2 attacks, And I think here on the right, we're going to see, I believe Corporate uses the 3-3 approach. And that was actually the one downside. So Hobbes, oh no, they're both going with 2s, but Hobbes got a low roll on his fireball damage. So that's why he didn't kill. Whereas Corporate actually missed on his one of his level 2 attacks. So he has to go again. And now he'll try and fireball to finish off the fight. All right, so let's see if we got, okay, so good news, bad news for Hobbes. He didn't get a strength, but he did get a feather and a fang. So he's got a lot of his crafting materials that you would hope to get out of the sequence of fights that he took. But his stat up was not as good. Oh, wow. So they both got a feather
Both
and
have
a fang,
feathers,
but
yeah.
Corp got that strength. So you'll see the strength for Serge in the first 45 to 50 minutes or so of this game will matter quite a lot. His stat values there will impact certain strategies we can use, as well as how quickly you can get through a lot of different fights, because he's going to be our main damage dealer for the first, say, about 80 minutes or so, 80 to 90 minutes of the run, and then we'll be switching over to a couple other characters that we can talk about as we get there.
Yes.
But oh, go ahead, Deeds.
Oh no, just going into, but now Lena wants to reminisce with us. We can finally give her the Komodo scales that we've, worked so hard to get on our, It's a lot like an afterthought. Like really, we're farming for these crafting materials, but it's like no, the actual mission, the actual side quest or quest we've been given is getting these Komodo scales because they're so pretty.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And also, I don't know if either of you want to talk a little bit about, because we've been kind of mentioning it, but sort of the fight ecosystem, right? The level 1, 2, and 3 attacks and how those work.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, take it, Dak.
Yeah, the way the fighting works is that you get kind of a 7 stamina maximum, and you can do a weak attack, middle attack, and a strong attack. The strong attacks are hit harder, but they also miss a lot more. There's percentages that are showed beside them, and the percentages there are actual percentages of your chances to hit. So the maximum those can go is 99. And so even at 99, you still miss 1 out of every 100. But it always seems to be that the misses come at the most opportune times, just to mess you up. So that's kind of where those misses happen. Actually, is a lot of the RNG in this game with the fighting.
Yeah, unlike other RPGs, the fact that you can miss, like it's impossible to be 100% accurate. I mean, there's something like Eagle Eye that gets you at 99%, but it never fully 100%, and which means at least once every 100 attacks that you make in this game, you're going to miss. And we do a lot more than we're going to be doing a lot more than 100 attacks across 2.5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And so as we go through all the various fights that, and we've been kind of talking about this, you've seen that there's the cutscenes that both of our runners are going through, which is, Serge getting called across dimensions and then actually transmitting between the two of them. So now he's going to wake up in the other dimension, and the misses that we get, you can have as good as stats as possible. And if you get a lot of misses, there's nothing you can do to make those fights go faster. You can have very poor stats, but if you're hitting pretty much everything, you're often in very good shape.
Serge here wakes up on a beach with somebody he doesn't recognize, saying, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" And they say, "Oh, Lena. Lena's in the village. Go see her." So they walk up with their Komodo pet. I love the way the Komodo struts here.
Like, hi,
Yeah.
You're not gonna kill me in this dimension.
Well, that's the thing, is it has some very, I think, concerning implications that, Serge was going through and fighting a few of these things to get some scales. And meanwhile, it looks like they're, potentially a little bit more domesticated than you might have otherwise expected. So let's hope that that's the last time that Serge has to worry about that. Unfortunately, we know that if you speedrun this game, you spend a lot of time killing Komodos, and we all have to carry that on our conscience.
Yeah, so here Corp and Hobbes just got to run straight through the whole beach area because they both got feathers. If they hadn't have gotten a feather, there's a chest in the middle of the little one-way roundabout there that also has a feather in it. It's not that much of a detour. It's about 10-15 seconds or so to go grab that chest to get the essential feather. But the nice thing is if you do get your feather, the cycle on that screen, you can just run straight through. You really don't have to worry about hitting those fish. It's really nice.
Here he's talking to Lena in another world, and point out that the difference that PH was talking about earlier. Notice the fisherman has a black hat now instead of the reddish one that he had in the other world. So kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of those really small kind of touches that I think the art design, the music, obviously in Chrono Cross is tremendous, but really the color palette, everything about the sort of visual and audio effects of this game, I think was really, really tremendously well handled. This is sort of Square at the height of their powers in that, early PS1, late PS1, early PS2 era. And it's such an incredible looking game, an incredible sounding game, and a lot of these small touches really contribute to that.
Yep, so here Lynx told us... Oh, sorry, go back.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say Hobbes was taking his beach bum fight because he doesn't have a humor, so... And Corp is also taking it.
Yeah, I don't think either of them got humors at all, so this will be interesting. They both... so Hobbes potentially could get both humors now and be completely in the clear, whereas Corporate is only guaranteed at least, or at most, one humor. One thing we didn't touch on yet is something that makes Chrono Cross such a great speedrunning game to do, in my opinion, is because grinding isn't necessary in this game, because the way you get stat ups on your strength and your magic is through boss fights. We actually call them star fights because it's not necessarily you actually can get them on fights that you wouldn't think are boss fights. But there's also kind of mini stars is how you can get kind of a preview of your stat ups. So they could opt to fighting both of the beach bums here at the Cape, and they could potentially get an extra strength up by doing so. It looked like CorporateImage opted not to do that, and he's on his way to start the next boss fight coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting. It looks like Hobbes actually did take the second fight. He got one humor from his first fight, but so very interesting. So he took a second fight, which now means that he has 3 humors, but really the target you're looking for there is 2, which the reason why you would do that is a couple. One, it means that you are guaranteed that you can't end up missing out on the ivory vest, which we need to basically get all of the remaining stuff that we will need for an iron dagger. So CorporateImage technically is slightly at risk for not being able to do that. And secondarily, since Hobbes didn't get his initial strength up, he might have decided that he wanted to take the extra fight to guarantee getting the extra humor and making sure that he has a chance at that mini star Deeds was talking about. It's an interesting decision, but it's maybe you could term it a little bit more race safe, and it means that he's much more likely to be in better strength shape.
Seems to have paid off because he did get that strength up on the mini star, and from my understanding of the mini stars, that means he will definitely get a strength up on this star that he's about to fight. So he's actually paid off, at least in terms of the strength.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the mini stars will guarantee that for anything that's not HP, basically the mini star stat up will predict, like both of you were saying, the full star level stat up when you actually fight your next boss fight. What that means is, Hobbes after this fight will be at least 11. Technically, he could get a +2, although that's those are possible, but pretty unlikely. So to talk a little bit about this fight as Corp had started it here, this is kind of a tutorial battle, and so you can see that we're going to defend at the beginning. If you watch Hobbes, he defended, and then the tall, skinny guy, Salt, runs up and hits him, and that's actually the cue to move to the next phase of the fight, is when Salt attacks. And that's technically random, so the longer it takes for Salt to do that before you actually get him to attack, it will actually have an impact on how quickly you can go into the next phase. But he got a very good start with Salt going right away, a hit on everything so far, and so we're gonna see if he's going for the slightly faster version of this fight, which he can do because he got that mini star. He would have had to do a bit of a different set of attacks that used all of his stamina if he hadn't gotten the mini star. So it might actually end up being a pretty good outcome for him.
Yeah, when you're fighting 3 different characters, it makes it easy to lose time because you're not really able to control how often they each get to go, like you can when it's just the one boss that you're fighting, like the Mama Komodo, for example. So yeah, when you're not as strong, it's easy to lose a lot more time than you intend to for just trying to control the field.
Wow. Uh-oh. So everyone's talking in the chat about Corporate got the Power Glove, which is actually, in the abstract, a good thing. It's an item that gives you +1 to your attack power, which is basically like 1 extra strength, which is really good. But it's a little bit scary because there's a little bit of a theory or a meme, exactly as Nadla is saying in the chat, that it's a bit cursed, and that when you get the Power Glove, that you'll have bad luck later in the run. So hopefully, for Corporate's sake, that's not the case, because we obviously we want to see our runners both get as good luck as possible.
The Power Glove is instead of what?
So that is the
Bone Axe, right?
That is the
Okay.
rare drop. Yeah, that's the rare drop from Karsh. So basically, Karsh gives you either the Bone Axe or the Power Glove. Pepper gives you either the Ivory Vest or a Copper, and Salt gives you the Ivory Helmet or a Copper.
Yeah, you really only need the Bone Axe drop if, and it can happen, but it's very rare, if you didn't get a Fang during the Komodo fights, you would disassemble the Bone Axe to get that Fang. But ideally, we'd prefer to just sell the Bone Axe. But yeah, getting the Power Glove is, it's actually nice getting the Power Glove, yeah, like PH was saying, to get the extra strength. But yeah, there are superstitions that, have a history in this game.
Well, and speaking of something that's not a superstition but is a hard requirement, so we missed it a little bit on Corp's side, but you can see it on Hobbes' side right now, is Kid, who just helped us in this last fight, now is asking us if we want her to go with us. And we have to say no to her 3 times. And it's those things where if you say yes, the run's pretty much dead. We need to say no to her in order to get Lena here, which you can see on CorporateImage's side. And it's a really, really big problem if you say yes to Kid. It would be, in any kind of like regular PB attempt, it would be pretty much a guaranteed reset if you accidentally said yes to Kid. So don't. This is kind of the be mean to Kid route, more or less.
Yes.
Poor Kid.
I think I already messed up their RNGs by not telling any jokes earlier. That's why neither of them had any humor.
Oh no!
There we go. All right. So happy to follow that. But yeah, so we have, now you can see that we get, Lena joins our party, as well as Poshel, this adorable pink dog thing. And I say dog thing because Poshel can talk. There are other dogs in the Chrono Cross ecosystem. Like you can see one right there on the right-hand side on Corporate screen. So we're not entirely sure what Poshel is, but dog-ish certainly seems to be the case. And Poshel will be used for basically one fight, but is really important for that fight coming up here in just a minute.
And just a quick aside, if players had not gotten 2 humors earlier, there is a backup with, as long as you get the iron vest drop in the salt pepper karsh fight, Poshel has an iron mail that we could swap it out with and disassemble that for an extra humor. But again, luckily these racers don't have to worry about that. We're pretty set on humors. Oh no, corporate. Does corporate need to do that actually? Never mind.
Yeah, corporate needs to switch out.
We're right.
Yeah,
corporate only has one
one.
humor.
Yeah, Hobbes has 3, so he has an extra one. You'd think if he was a nice guy, he would have given his extra one to corporate, but no dice.
Nah, he's being competitive. He stole corporate's extra.
Exactly. So right now you can see we're getting into another one of these tutorial battles with the Shaker brothers, and right now they're explaining how turn elements work. That actually is an important component of kind of the second half of this run, and ends up getting used a ton through the remainder of the any percent run. The idea there is the upper left there is something called a field, and the 3 elements in it are the colors of the 3 most recent elements that have been cast. Your innate color, like what your character's color, every character has one of the 6 colors, actually gets increased damage and takes less damage based on if there are the same color in that field up in the upper left. But they will take more damage and do less if the opposite color is in the upper left, right? So of the 6, black and white are opposing, blue and red are opposing, and green and yellow are opposing. So you're pretty much always looking for trying to get as much of your innate color. And with a turn element, you can actually change the color that you are to do extra damage to opponents who are also the opposite color. Oh my gosh, Corp with all those misses. Ugh.
We are actually relying on Poshel for damage in this fight, so those 3 Poshel misses are just wow.
And also as a way to trade off stamina here, since every character starts with 7 stamina, and to, as you attack with your alternate characters, it can refresh your fellow party members, and so Poshel also serves to help give back stamina to Serge so we can continue attacking with him.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow,
See, this is the curse of the power glove.
And at the same time.
That's crazy. Considering that Hobbes did an entire extra fight, that's a big. So that just really goes to show you how big of a delta that those misses can make.
Yeah, and with this, we are putting Lena on hold. We will want to come back to her later. I know Hobbes left her at 9 magic. And I think also, or I think Corp had a... I kind of missed it, but I do... let me go back and check. Oh, it was a 10 magic Lena, so just for future reference.
Yeah, the idea here is that Lena is one of the other 2 main... When we were talking about kind of Serge being our primary damage dealer for the first, let's say, hour and a half of this run, the remaining hour-ish is going to be primarily driven by Glenn, whom we just saw here on screen. We'll be getting him in a bit. And then Lena, and the 2 of them, Glenn's strength and Lena's magic stat are the 2 that we're really, really keeping an eye on. So when we get Lena back into the party, the amount of magic stat gain that she has gotten while she was out will be really important. And that is a mechanic that this game has, where every single character actually gets randomized stat ups for every single boss fight, every star level that you go through, even when they're not in your party. The only thing that is dependent on being in the party is the mini stat ups that you get from those mini star fights in between boss fights. So realistically, that's one of the real benefits of doing a speedrun of Chrono Cross, is that you don't have to grind at all, and you don't have to worry about, oh, well, is this character, do I have to put this other character in my party sooner rather than later if I'm going to use them? They'll generally all get all of the stat ups that you need throughout the game. The problem is sometimes they can miss those stat opportunities, but they'll have the they'll have the chance to get them at least, which is really all you can ask for. Well, that and good RNG, I suppose.
Right. And quick correction, I said 9, I meant 11. I was reading the magic defense number, but it was 11 on Hobbes' side. So, much better than 9.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like a big difference, but it can be a really, really substantial difference because magic stat gain is a little bit less likely than strength. So Lena's magic stat up is about 44%. So if you think about it, the likelihood of getting those additional 2 magic stats, it's like 4 or 5 star levels difference from like an absolute perspective, right? How many more levels you would expect before someone at 9 would catch up to someone at 11. And that's quite a lot in this Lynx 2%. There's only about 20 bosses total. So that's actually a pretty significant difference.
21. Lynx 2 is the 21st star, which you know.
Right.
Yeah, so just earlier you saw both Hobbes and Corporate going to this mansion. It kind of felt like we were going out of our way here to pick up this profiteer's purse that's hiding under the stairs there in the mansion. And that is our final element to be able to buy kind of the third tier of weapons in this game that will allow this speedrun to be as fast as we're able to get it. By disassembling that purse, we're able to access iron, which the game doesn't really expect us to have at this point. Instead of using the profiteer's purse for its intended purpose of getting more money per fight.
In fact, Zippa at the smithy says, "Oh, if we only had iron," and here you are, you just break your profiteer purse and says, "Is this what you're looking for?"
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And also conveniently, so at this point in the game, you can actually choose to recruit between 3 different characters to proceed into the Viper Manor that we're trying to access here. And conveniently, right next to the blacksmith shop that we absolutely want to visit in this run is Pierre. And we use the Pierre route in this speedrun for reasons you will find out just in just a minute.
The reason is that Pierre is the best, right?
Oh, yes, of course. He is hero of the run.
Darn right. Yeah, so it's Pierre, and then the other 2 are Nikki and Guile. I think a lot of people probably did I think at my casual playthrough that when I first started playing this game, I think I did the Guile route. I think the Pierre route is pretty rare. The game doesn't really lead you towards him all that much, and he is, if anyone, if you look up anything online or whatnot, he's easily the weakest of the 3 characters. So they generally won't recommend that you use him because they are all wrong. How dare they?
I honestly think the Pierre route's pretty funny. It is one of my favorites, just for comedic purposes. But it's also the fastest route because Nikki and Guile both require you to go through basically an extra little mini dungeon just to access the manor. Versus the Pierre route, we literally just go straight up the front door and ask nicely, and then not so nicely when that doesn't work. And we just do the 2 star fights here, and then we're in. So it's definitely a lot of time saved there. A good 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's a really big difference, and it's actually quite funny. So in the options here, there's actually a 4th option that the game doesn't really highlight, where you can get a whole bunch of cats to run through and get the guards to kind of chase them off screen. Unfortunately, it then leads to 3 additional fights instead of just 2. So it's actually, well, really instead of just this 1. So it's slower, even though it is again very, very amusing.
Yes, that's part of the speedrunning community. Kind of has a joke category. We call it cat percent, and that's one of the unofficial requirements to complete the category.
Yeah, I think that we're Pierre finishing off the fight on corporate side too, but we're pretty neck and neck right now.
Hobbes has a very slight lead.
And you'll also notice that Pierre is leading the party currently. Typically on a casual run, you're gonna be sticking with Serge at the front, but by pressing the select button, you can actually alternate the order of the party. And we're doing this on purpose. We want Pierre to be the leader of our party because of a mechanic coming up in this fight that we'll see in just a second. But I also want to touch upon there's another reason just strategically that we actually pay close attention to our party leaders, because usually any kind of buff elements that you want to use, like strengthen, will automatically select your party leader first, and which makes it a lot faster to know, oh, you can just button mash, press through the X's just to select them automatically and save a lot of time. Versus needing to do extra inputs to go left or right to select a different character. But yes, as you see here, Pierre just died as part of another tutorial fight here. They will Ketchup will always attack your party leader and kill them most likely. So we give Pierre that tank duty because again, he is our hero.
He sacrifices himself for us.
Yes. And more importantly, Serge is not in danger, and we can still deal damage. You'll also notice that we are only attacking Ketchup. We are kind of ignoring Salt and Pepper. He's going to be doing, ideally, after dealing some damage on him, we do this dash and slash that you just saw Corporate do, and then Ketchup will automatically go into this Flame Knock ability. Which is one of my favorites in this game. I think it's just so hilarious using Salt as a bat to hit Pepper at one of us. And then they're knocked out for the rest of the fight. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, Ketchup is best boy. But
Oh wait,
Oh wow.
are they both die at the same time again? This might be the most neck and neck I've seen at this point of the race. Let's see, look at these stat ups here. We're also picking up that turn yellow chest. As we were talking about the element fields earlier, that turn yellow will be used in one of our upcoming fights in the manor. Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties. It looks like PH's connection is just running a little bit broken up a little bit.
it just dropped there for a second. My apologies.
Doc, you want to get into guard skip? I think they had a gentleman's agreement that they won't be attempting it, but do you want to enlighten our chat on what guard skip is?
Yeah, there is a way to skip this guard fight that Hobbes just ran right into. What you could do is you can aggro one of the other guards on the side, and then you go up to the door, and right as that person loses you, the other two will talk, and if you can get to open the door right in between there, you get to go in without fighting him. But you have to do it just right, and it has to be perfect, and if it's not, then you end up having to fight, and then you might have to fight another fight because the other guards, and it's kind of hard to. Yeah. They just decide they both skip it. By skipping it, Hobbes has chosen to do this fight directly, and Corpus just chosen to go to the shack first to the little mini game where you're feeding the dragonettes or whatever those things. What are those things called? What are those things called?
Dragoness is as good a name as any.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't quite, I mean, they call them dragons, but, like, they're not quite the same feel as your typical dragon.
Yeah, so this is, you can see his corporate is coming up, basically what Doc was describing. You see the guard on the left there, that's the one that you aggro. Based on some testing that a few people have done, for a long time it was believed to be a one-frame trick, but I think actually Super Handy had some suggestions that it might actually be a two-frame window, depending on the timing. But it is a very, very finicky trick. It's a huge benefit because you can skip this whole fight. And you can see here one of the downsides of taking the fight. On Hobbes' side, it was that the fight it was a lot of misses. On Corporate side, 4 guards. And 4 guards, kind of like that same deal where he had to fight three enemies when Hobbes was fighting 2 in Lizard Rock. Just extra enemies are always going to be slower because you just have to run up more times. You have to let them attack you more. There's not a whole lot you can do about it, but, you know, kind of try and get through the fight as best you can.
And the soldiers aren't so bad towards the end of the manor as you get more strength. But yeah, at the very beginning of the manor, especially, is just when they just feel like they take so much longer to kill.
Yeah, this is very, 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 very close. Yeah, Corp understands the true strategy, which is to always use Pierre to finish your fights. I appreciate that. But so you can see how Hobbes is ahead, but I mean, we're talking really, really small margins here, just a few seconds difference between the two. This is extremely close.
Yeah, coming up here, there's a snake statue coiled up that requires you to give it a code in order to pass the doors next that lead beyond. You have to say 0. You can guess, like, even if you happen to somehow figure out, I don't know, if you were to put in the exact code that it turns out to be, it would still drop you down here. Basically, the code is not determined until after we talk to Glenn, which won't be till after this forced guard fight here. And that we'll use, of course, we have to beat up these guards so we can, you know, disguise ourselves as guards and walk around as we please.
Yeah, this is a great example of the, you know, how to not guard a prisoner school of guarding is not only do we open the locked door and invite them out, but we don't even take any of their weaponry or other dangerous elements or anything like that. It's like, yeah, we'll just fight you as is. And obviously it does not go great for them.
There's probably a reason they were stationed in the basement of the manor. Exactly.
All right, so Corp actually now taking this is going to be going back and forth in these fights because they are so close together that like one fight going slightly better than another will really move them between the two. They are going to be doing mostly the same stuff as well. Yeah, that's a good point. So what Zan is referencing there, right? That that lock code being randomized, we could see each turn takes about a second, so it can be up to about like a 15-second difference if you get something like a 1-1 versus a 9-9. So we'll see what they get here.
The guards, they must have been the same ones that were in Chrono Trigger that let Chrono out.
That's true. Yeah, it's apparently it's endemic to the region.
All right, so what codes are we gonna get? This is crazy. Like the fact that that the code actually could make a difference in, you know, potentially swapping the lead here. So you have 71 on Corp's side, and then now we'll have a 13 on Hobbes' side. So Corporate will have to be waiting a little bit longer to input his code compared to Hobbes. They both have a 1, though. It's actually not that much of a difference between a 7 and a 3, but, I mean, that's 5 seconds, I guess.
Yeah. I always did like this, that the password is silence and they just make you wait. Because the thing is that I actually remember getting this right when I played as casually, just because I was like staring at it like, oh my god, I don't know, what was I supposed to do here? And then literally they just are like, oh yeah, you got it right, come on in.
You're like, wait a second, what? Yeah, like it could take some people just as long to read all 4 of those options.
Right. So you can see here we are equipping the Dragoon's Honor that we actually just picked up in the prior room. That's a really, really useful accessory that will give an increase to 1 extra attack power, 1 extra magic power, and increased accuracy. It adds about 3 to 4% to those hit rates that you see. So like someone who would normally have like a 92% to hit on a level 1 attack, it'll be 96 instead. And that's a really, really nice benefit that we'll be kind of moving these accessories that we get around depending on which characters are doing our primary damage, doing the primary attacks and whatnot. So for now, everything's going on Serge wherever we can, because obviously he's kind of our main damage dealer.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough. We keep saying this, but being able to stay as consistent as possible with landing your hits and not missing where it's important is a really basically is the key to being having a successful run.
We're going to see the turn yellow strat here. He is to hit once and turn yellow. Pierre has now done his job for the fight.
Yes, thank you, Pierre.
Good job, buddy. Proud of you. Yeah, so you can see that the damage that we're doing there with Serge, he did about 55 on those level 3 attacks. The turn strategy is extremely, extremely valuable. If he was not, if he didn't have his damage changed by becoming a yellow innate for this fight, he does about like 35. So that is a huge increase, because not only are there 2 yellow elements on the field, although not anymore for Hobbes because there's a green one coming on now, but also by being yellow and attacking a green enemy, you get powered up across all of those different components. So it just really increases the damage that you do by a huge amount.
Yeah, really good fight on Hobbes' side. Corp again just keeps on missing. I think he's missed 3 or 4 times at least on this fight.
Yeah, that's really tough. So you can see he was able to get through. It was a little nervy there for a moment, because when the bulb there, that last bulb, got a chance to do another a bushwhacker on that last one. If it had attacked Serge again, it could have killed Serge. So that would have been unfortunate, because when you are dead, you miss out on stat ups. If you die, if a character is dead at the end of a star level fight. So he would have still probably been able to get through it okay, but missing out on the chance for a strength there would have been really unfortunate.
That's the only way to miss out on a star level, is to be in the party and dead at the end of the battle. That's it.
Right. So we're having a nice little conversation with this chest here. I like to think that this is an homage to the Mountains Are Nice guy from Chrono Trigger, right at the top of the Denadoro Mountains, where you're going through, and there's a Kilwalla up there, and if you talk to him a few times, he goes, "Mountains are nice. Boy, you're nosy," and then he gives you a magic tab. But instead, you have to do it 20 times, and the end result is a Dragoon's Gauntlet, which is one of the best accessories in the game. It increases your attack power by 3, which means that we will be basically using this for the entire rest of this run. And actually, even in an any % full run, you will use this item for the entire rest of the game. It's really good.
Yeah, I always think it's funny how this game like purposely trolls the players, just because typically in RPGs, whenever they start counting up like that, you just assume, oh, it's just going to repeat and keep going. But no, you just got to talk to him 20 times.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't there, wasn't there one in like FF7 where he'll just keep going like in perpetuity after some point? I'm trying to remember, but you're right. There's definitely multiple games that do that.
Coming up here is the Marcy fight, and
Yeah.
this is kind of the first, I wouldn't say necessarily scary, but if you're new to running this game, kind of most of the fights up to this point are relatively safe. If you let the fights go on for too long, obviously you can start worrying, you would start worrying about your characters dying, but Marcy's kind of the first boss introduction to really kind of getting an understanding of just how spending your stamina works with how often the boss gets to go. We actually call that AP action points. Each boss has a kind of a minimum guaranteed action point count of when they will go. And that combined with some flags, we know that Marcy is guaranteed to do certain attacks at certain HP thresholds of 50% and the critical 25% HP threshold, which could potentially, honestly, KO the whole party if you're not careful. So hopefully we'll see how nice Marcy decides to be in this race. Maybe she'll be merciful. Probably not, but But luckily, our players are seasoned enough. Hopefully, they can work through this fight. We'll find out.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think even casually, Marcy is really the first boss that is really dangerous. She's fast. She hits hard. Like Deeds was talking about, she has multiple HP triggers where she does pretty nasty attacks. She also heals herself if the battle goes on long enough. Definitely a scary fight. Manageable for sure, but you definitely need to have the understanding of how to get through it. The other thing that's interesting about the fight here is that there are a couple of different ways that we like to handle it. Interesting there for Hobbes is he missed and then got a crit, so he's basically on normal track right now. All right, so the end of this fight, I'll talk about it when we potentially get there, like one of the dangers specifically too. But let's see how, a couple of misses there. All right, so this is that first HP trigger that Deeds was talking about. This is the Cat's Cradle, and it can one-shot Kid, but it was on Serge. That's good. All right,
Marcy missed me on corporate side.
Because Hobbes had a couple of misses, he's not going to be able to kill with this dash and slash, but because Kid is still alive, the combination of the dash and slash and this fireball generally is enough to kill Marcy once she gets into critical health. That's not a guaranteed thing, but it's pretty likely. And you can see on Corp's side as well, kind of the same deal, right? We've just knocked Marcy into critical health, so she doesn't die to this dash and slash, but then you get the fireball off. You're guaranteed to get it off before she goes because of that 7 stamina use floor that Deeds was talking about, and they both get through the fight. Pretty well done.
Ooh, yeah, very uneventful on both ends, which I know entertainment-wise isn't always the best, but just for the sake of the race, I'm very glad that that went well for both players.
Exactly.
Oh, now that you've been able to beat Marcy, I'll tell you more of the stuff I know that you don't.
Yeah, so Doc is talking about kind of the prophet here. He shows up a lot throughout the course of the game as kind of the exposition source in a variety of ways. Really quickly, I didn't see, did Hobbes get the Ice Blast? I saw Corporate did.
Both got Ice Blast.
He did, yes.
Great.
Both of them got the Ice Blast, thankfully.
Yes. Really good. So that's a huge difference maker. The one of the examples where we've talked about the drops, so I don't think we've mentioned it, but it's about 90% that you get the common drop and about 10% that you get the rare drop. Huge majority of cases, we actually would rather have the common drop over the rare drop. The rare drop tends to be something that we don't plan on for the run, and so in like that example, the rare drop from Marcy is iron, which just does not help us at all. We already have all the iron that we needed from the Profiteer's Purse. The common drop is the Ice Blast, which is a really good level 4 element. And there isn't a way for us to easily get one of those before this point. Like much later you could, so casually it's not as big a deal, but for this run, it's really important because missing out on it makes several fights potentially a lot more dangerous.
I would honestly say, I mean, if you look through speedrunning notes, if you're trying to learn this game, generally those notes are just going to always assume you get the common drops. And this, to me, personally, I feel like the Ice Blast drop is kind of one of the most essential common drops to get. I mean, obviously early game stuff, with the Komodos and stuff, there's things like that. But yeah, not getting that ice blast really affects what kind of strategies you have to do with some bosses later on.
Oh, for sure. All right, so both of our runners. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Drop.
I think you're gonna say.
I was thinking they both got 3 guard fights there.
We were gonna say the same thing. Sorry. Yeah, so that is nice because it keeps things simple. They took a little bit of a different approach to the fight, but pretty good results there. And yes, once again, corporate really leaning into the PR strats here. I highly approve. It looks like he's out of tablets though, so hopefully his character health is all right. That is a little bit spooky. Yeah, so corporate has 15 strength plus the power glove. So the strength difference can matter. For example, on the fight with Lynx here, it will make a difference in the kind of the end of the fight. You can do stuff that's slightly quicker if you have Serge at 15 strength or above. So corporate is above that break point, Serge is below. When we talk about strength or magic or any of these stats, really there are kind of ranges that we're looking at. It's going to be something like, oh, we want to be above 13 here, or we want to be above 16 here, or whatever. It's less about like, I want exactly this number, and more like, well, when we're within 11 to 13, this is what you would do. From 14 to 16, this is what you would do, and so on. But yeah, so now here we get our first look at Big Bad Lynx.
Yeah, Lynx has a similar HP trigger to Marcy in that when he goes critical at 25% health, he will use a black healing element on himself. However, we have a way to kind of skip that. If we also know that Lynx here is scripted to do alternative elements. Should you use a white element against him because he is black innate, or for example, pilfering with Kid will also trigger a different. Oh gosh.
Hi, Pierre.
Oh, wow.
Man, I think Pierre's died like at least 3 times on Hobbes' end. I feel like he's getting the opposite. Pierre's getting the opposite experience versus Corpse heroic Pierre. But what was I saying? Oh yes. But yeah, so basically we want to skip the heal that Lynx does by either using the pilfer on the same turn. It's essential that we use the pilfer or the dash and slash white element on the same turn that Lynx goes critical, to avoid that heal. It is the main strategy behind this fight.
Right. And you can see that on corporate side, he actually had he did a defend all to kind of get some of his stamina back instead of going through the fight cleanly, because he's had a lot of misses here so far. So he did that specifically to set up that he'd be able to have the imbecile here overwrite the heal properly, because he didn't want to accidentally knock Lynx into critical health without having an opportunity to do one of those elements and make sure that you don't see the nostrum. Nice strength on Corp's got a chunky Serge there.
Yep. Yeah, so it looks like we have the 5639 on Hobbes' end versus a 5708. So this is a very extremely close race within 30 seconds of each other, basically.
Super close.
Were able to go for the magic ring there, which will be important a little bit later for Lena. So they both got magic rings.
Yeah, and also just the really nice job from both of them, like a 56 or on Hobbes' side, and like basically a 57 flat from Corp, using kind of like race safe strats, no guard skip, getting 4 guards on corporate side, like, and frankly a really bad sequence of misses in a couple of different fights. Really good. So they're both off to a really good start here, and this should be a really tight race for a while here. We do have some nice lengthy dialogue sequences coming up, but kind of a great kind of platform here for the second half of the run. Should be really exciting. These guys are both really good, so should be fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is honestly the biggest stretch of kind of dialogue to mash through for runners. And you typically the longest split in the whole run, even with any percent, it's one of the longest splits. Just because there really aren't any fights basically the next 15 minutes or so.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so the two we kind of break the run up into, you can break it up into kind of like thirds or halves, right? So Lynx 2, this race is about the first third of the run. And then in the second third of the run, there's a sequence called the Sage Split, or
Yeah.
the SS Zelbus. That's probably the other kind of like really long mashing sequence that you kind of have to deal with in any percent runs. We don't have to do that because it's after this race will be over. But those are kind of the two big ones that are just sort of like just dialogue, not a whole lot happening, no fights, kind of breaking it up. Pretty much everything else, Chrono Cross is in many ways a boss rush, right? Because we really don't have to do any grinding. We don't have to do very many like like there's no random enemy encounters, right? Because it's like Chrono Trigger, you can see all of the enemies on screen. So
Even the menuing is the shopping trips and menuing are also relatively limited compared to other
yeah,
RPG runs.
absolutely. And Daffy's right. The setup for going into Dario, definitely there's a pretty long cutscene dialogue sequence there. I think usually it probably feels like it's not quite as bad because you're just mentally preparing for that fight. If you're familiar with this game, Dario is kind of an optional boss, although actually a very plot important one. But he is a fight that you don't have to do, but that we do in the run pretty much as early as we possibly can, because it allows us to get the Master Immune, which is the best weapon in the game for Serge.
Just earlier, you got to see the Chrono Trigger name drop. Have to call that one out.
Yes, excuse me.
Said
Thank
the
you.
thing.
Definitely, he did. He said the thing. TM. Yeah, so now we wake up here in Goldove, and Matcha has been taking care of us. Matcha is great. Unfortunately, Matcha's family does not share some of her traits, because Matcha is awesome and a lot of her family less so. Orcha's fine, but then Korcha here is just the worst, and Mel is kind of annoying. Although Mel is, I think, actually adopted, if I remember the story of the game correctly.
All right, so plot going on here. Kid gets scratched up there, and then but that had a special poison on it. And the doctor in this town can't do anything. Mash, mash, mash. We're just like complaining. Hey, blah 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 blah. Where's the Hydra humor? We don't know. They're extinct. We killed them all. Somebody should have thought about this before they killed the last Hydra humor. It's like somebody would go kill all the Komodos down at Lizard Rock. Then we wouldn't have this cure. Oh wait, Serge did that in the other world. Oh. Anyway, that's pretty much kind of what's going on here, and they can't find any cure. Mash, mash, mash. This doctor is about to leave and go surfing because that's what he does.
Yeah, I think given the choice, I would much prefer our doc over the doc in Chrono Cross, because
100%.
Doc Cobran is great, and this doc is not like. I mean, look, it's sad. I agree, but
he can surf.
He can surf. I don't know if you could surf, Doc, but all I know is that
I can't surf.
So that he's got that on you. But outside of that, the fact that he kind of says, "Hey, this person is sick, and I don't know how to heal them. I need to be alone." It's like, I'm not sure if that's really the attitude you want in your medical professionals, but what are you gonna do? Yeah, he's doing his best. But see, that's the thing. Is he though? Is he really doing his best? He's just like, there's nothing I can do. I'm gonna go, and then he leaves. But we do have a nice little sequence here with Harl.
I couldn't stand Harl when I first played this game. I couldn't stand her until a little bit later. Then I was like, hey, she's kind of cool. She's kind of like the femme fatale here. She's like, oh no, sir, just come with me. Don't worry about her. I was like,
no, I'm the opposite. She was definitely one of my favorite characters first playthrough.
Yeah, and I think people like to call this out, but it is still worthwhile noting. Like you can see on Hobbes' screen, you can actually still see the faint outline of Harl even after she disappears. And some people think it might actually be intentional. I know Corp has talked about on his stream at times. He thinks that it was actually the developers leaving her just barely visible intentionally to suggest that she's actually still listening in on your conversation. I'm not sure that that actually happens on the PS1 though. In fact, I think it doesn't. So some people think it might have to do with just different transparency values between the consoles because we are running this, both Hobbes and Corp are running this on a PlayStation 2 to take advantage of fast disk speed, which is a setting that you can apply, which allows PlayStation 1 games to load slightly quicker, which is a permitted setting for Chrono Cross speedrunning.
Oh, I didn't even know that you could do that on a PS2. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's actually really important. I still remember right around when I first started running this game was I think when Corp got his first sub 7, and he basically had his PB at the time was like 702 or 703 or something, and then someone told him about fast disk speed, and he goes, "Oh, I should try that," and he immediately got like a 655. It was like, and I think it was like he did other things better as well, but it's worth like multiple minutes over the course of the run. It's a pretty big difference maker.
And I just want to point. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, because we were talking about Harl, whether that was purposely done or not. I mean, it is to be noted, though. I mean, when you don't save Kid, Harl actually has the astral amulet with her when we meet up with her after Lynx 2. So how did she get it unless she was kind of waiting around in that room, after Korcha took it from us? So.
Yep. Excellent.
Very true.
Lore justification for sure. But yeah, just to get back to the console conversation, I just do want to emphasize, if you're watching this and this just seems like a fun game that you want to try doing a speedrun for, but you don't have a PS2 with that fastest speed option, it's really not that big of a deal. And in fact, there are emulators that are approved that you can run as well for this speedrun. So, and that is also just as viable. You can definitely get to sub 7 on an emulator. So yeah, please look into playing this game even if you don't have that fast speed option.
Every time you guys are mentioning that in Discord, the particular one that people are using, a Duck Station, is it?
Yeah, so DuckStation is the newest PlayStation emulator that has kind of like an emulated version of fast disk speed. There's been a lot of conversation about the best way to kind of allow people to leverage that. But I would also add, even separate from DuckStation, which it's a good call out, Doc, but you can get a very good time in this game just learning the run through any number of, like BizHawk is kind of like the default always approved. I know that PSXFin or EPSXE have, like, people have run this game as Deed said, like multiple people have sub 7 times on emulators, including a couple of different types of emulators. It's a very accessible speedrun because there are a ton of really thorough notes that we make available to the community from a handful of different runners that have been doing this game for a really long time. So anyone who's interested, definitely worth checking out the Chrono Speedruns Discord and giving it a try, because it's very, very manageable. And you, as Deed said, you don't need a PlayStation 2 to run it and even to get a very good time on it.
I only mentioned Duck Station because every time you guys mention it in there, I just keep thinking, Duck Station, Wabbit Station, Duck Station, Wabbit Station, Duck Station, Wabbit Station.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, which in fair, very fair. But yeah, so we're kind of finishing up with this sort of long plot / exposition sequence here. Hobbes is kind of going and talking to Dorea here, who's sort of the this game's version of like the person who kind of gives you a hint as to where to go. We obviously in the speedrun don't really use that much, so it's kind of funny because there's a pretty good chance that when you play casually, you come through here a lot. Whereas for speedrunners, it's like we see her twice in the whole game. We have been given Korcha's boat. That we kind of talked over it. My apologies, but it's one of my favorite moments in this game because it kind of lampshades a very common RPG trope from the era. Is Korcha, we go to him and we say, "Hey, give us your boat." And obviously he doesn't like us. He says no. And then his mom rolls up and says, why don't you just go with them? And that's usually the indication that someone's about to join your party, right? Like you see it in RPGs all the time, especially, kind of the SNES PlayStation era. But instead, she just goes, you know what? Actually, screw it. I'm going to take your boat and we're going to go on an adventure and you get to stay here and watch your baby sister. And then she joins your party instead, which is just the best. And she gives you a bunch of money in the exchange as well. So Matcha is awesome.
And
she
you get
finds
the
the
tropical
frying pan.
paradise screen too.
Also true. Yeah. She's great. And Korcha is still terrible. So.
My only complaint with her is this dialogue box that Hobbes just did and Corporate's about to do, because it's just one single dialogue box, and it immediately gives you the options of whether to go or stay. But staying is the default option, and it's just so easy to accidentally say, "Oh, never mind, I don't want to get on this boat." You can tell how many times I've accidentally done that by how frustrating I am with this.
Now, we don't let her do it in this run, but if Matcha could, she would just swim back to Goldove. We don't let her do it because it takes up time.
Exactly. Kind of at the end of this purchase sequence here, what Doc is talking about is she'll just kind of walk off and do a leisurely backstroke back home. She's great. Yes, and Zan is correct. Technically, we do add Matcha to the run extremely into the party very briefly. But what we're going to do now is we are back in Termina here, and we are going to get... so we're going to... You can see Hobbes here is going to get a little bit of information about Glenn. This is required to get Glenn into your party, keep the storyline progressing. Glenn is really, really good. Since it comes up often, he is not the Glenn of Chrono Trigger. He's just kind of his namesake, but he does have X Strike with Serge to make things, not confusing at all. But he's one of the best characters that you will get in the entire 45 character roster that Chrono Cross offers.
You can only get him if you do not save Kid in that huge dialogue sequence we just passed through.
Right.
What's interesting is I found that both of these runners have taken slightly different paths in their laundry list here. Corp went to Lisa's first, now he's going to the smithy, and then he'll go back to see the Glen scene. Whereas, Hobbes saw the Glen scene first, then goes to the element shop and then the smithy. So I just think it's interesting how, it's multiple paths to the same thing. It's just, it's really different, and then you see it kind of come back together again. We saw the same thing in the Manor, where Hobbes took that guard fight first, then went to do the mini dragonette feeding, but Corp went to do the dragonette feeding first, and then came back and fought the guards. So.
Yeah, there might be, with the guard fight, for example, there is a little bit of a couple seconds difference with, choosing between the two. But I'm not actually sure if, like you said, for this laundry list of things we're doing here, for example, the blacksmith needing to we're buying a sword for Glenn and a new ladle for Lena. And I don't know if going there first really saves or, loses time. I think it's just, personal preference from runner to runner, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as far as I think anyone's really looked into it, because if you think about the overall pathing that you have to do, you're pretty much covering the same ground. Everyone sort of gets their own muscle memory. And I think to an extent, it's just whatever you're familiar with and you like doing. Because you end up doing this so many times, right? When you do a speed run, that this is one of those sections that you can kind of take a little bit of a mental break because there are other parts that you have to be focusing so thoroughly on. And this, at least, like a lot of it's muscle memory and, oh, I'm kind of, I buy these things and it's pretty much always the same stuff. And I listen to Glenn talk and blah, blah, blah. So you kind of go a little bit on autopilot during this section.
Yeah. Yeah, the most important thing is you have to flag that conversation with Glenn. And on that note, if anyone wants to quickly get in their guesses on Glenn's strength and also Lena's magic, we're about to find out what that is.
Yeah, and that'll actually be really, really important for really the rest of the run here. We've got, maybe something in the neighborhood of a little more than an hour left, and that will matter for basically every single fight. Either Glenn or Lena will matter a reasonably large amount for basically every single fight through the rest of the run. So the conversation has been flagged, yes. All right, so let's see. So we've got 16 and 11. I actually didn't catch what Glenn was there on Hobbes' side.
Didn't either.
Hold on, let me go back and check.
So, but you can see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
I was just gonna mention that we put Masha in our party, and then leave. Then we switch her out later. That avoids her swimming back.
That's exactly right. 14. Okay, so Corp had a 16 strength Glenn there, which is pretty good. Glenn, like 15 is more or less average. But like if you think about like average stat gains, it's like technically slightly below 15, but 15 is the most likely for Glenn. 14 is fine. 13 and below, you're starting to be like a little bit at risk. And then 16 is like solid. 17 and above is like really strong.
Oh, that
yeah,
was
14
a fast buying
confirmed,
menu there.
by the way.
Nice. Okay.
These guys are both so good at their menus. It's just amazing.
Wow.
It's just like they flow through like
13
nothing.
magic for Hobbes.
Yeah. So that goes to show you, right? So when we left Lena, Corporate was at 10 magic and Hobbes was at 11. But now Hobbes' Lena is at 13 magic and Corporate's is at 14. So Hobbes actually got average growth. 13, when you leave Lena at 11, getting her back at 13 is the most likely outcome. But in that same time span, Corporate got 4 stat gains while Hobbes got the expected 2. So Corporate got definitely a little bit better fortune on his 2 other party member stats. So this will be really interesting to see what kind of impact that has to these fights.
And now we're coming across the ghost ship portion of the run. This is kind of the next big RNG section. Potentially just outside of your control could be about 2 minutes time difference, just based on pure RNG on the splits coming up.
One stat we don't talk about too much that actually can make a little bit difference on one of these upcoming fights is Lena's hit points. Can she survive a flap? And that's just coming up on our next boss fight, which is coming up. So
yeah,
of course we don't really notice that until the fight itself starts. And, oh no, my Lena doesn't. It's kind of too late to worry about it then. But I mean, it does kind of happen.
Yeah. So what Doc is referencing there, we're going to try, the next fight that we're going to be doing is with Polly, which is basically a big pterodactyl looking thing. And our goal is to get an ice blast off. That's part of why the ice blast is really important before Polly's first turn. If we do, we will have the entire field, we'll have blue elements, which limits Polly's damage. If Polly does the flap before we get the ice blast off and attacks Lena, Lena's pretty much dead. It's possible for Lena to have enough health to survive that, but it's really, really rare. It needs her to have like almost 130 HP. But if we get the field all blue before the flap comes off, generally it does around 105. And so Lena can have enough health there to survive that, which is really important, again, because we want her to, even if we're not going to do anything else with her in that fight, we want her to be alive for the stat gain. And when a character is dead at the end of a fight, they start the next fight at 1 HP. we normally would heal, but you don't always have the chance to heal. And the auto heals that you do at the end of the fight don't give any health back to characters that were dead. So if Lena is dead, when you heal at the end of the poly fight, she has to start the Fargo fight at 1 HP, which is risky because then if he attacks her right away, she doesn't get a chance to do this. You're not using her for much, but it can still be a problem for that fight.
And coming up here, so just before the poly fight, we are forced into an optional fight that we can just run away from. And this is actually one of 3 forced fights that we're able to run away from on the ghost ship.
Yeah, and it's great that the game builds in pretty much every single fight is one that you can run away from. There's a couple that you get put back into immediately, but they actually give you like custom dialogue, so it's pretty fun. Like Fargo's like, not enough for you? All right, so we can see here on Hobbes' screen, he does get the Ice Blast off before the flap. Lena has 105 health on the number, so like we'll see.
2 misses though.
It's too bad.
Oh,
Poly
yeah.
rolled really high.
Here comes a flap.
Who's that on? Serge, I think? Yeah. So it should be all right. It looks like on Corp's side, he also got everything off. Wow. Corp has a really good start here. Oh! Man, he almost skipped this entirely. That would have been... That was really close.
Yeah, the fabled flapless fights.
Right.
Doesn't happen all that often. If you manage to get a poly fight without a single flap, that's pretty much the best split on on poly you're ever gonna have.
17 strength Surge. Wow.
Yeah, honestly, the poly and Fargo fights are relatively safe fights, and it's just a matter of, you know, how fast can you get, as you know, just basically trying to avoid time loss in these fights more than anything.
Yeah, this race is super duper close. It will be interesting to see, because Zan is correct, Corporate has very, very good stats. It'll be interesting to see what kind of impact that has, if any, as we go forward. But for right now, these guys are neck and neck. Anytime you're in the same fight in a Chrono Cross race, it is really close.
Yeah, this will definitely, the keys could potentially change the game completely, or not. You know, it's basically what's coming up here is at the end of this fight, Fargo's going to knock us out with some, I don't know, sleep powder. Do they mention what it is? Basically, he's gonna knock us out, stick us in the ship. However, the ship's going to be taken over by a ghost ship, which is why someone in the comments earlier mentioned kind of the weird-looking water in the background, and that's just to hide the ghost ship coming up.
Yeah, this is so close.
I
The
can't
sync
believe
is real.
like
Strikes.
simultaneous.
This is so good, and like this is out of control.
So, oh wow.
+2 for Hobbes. Oh man, yeah, this is they're closing in.
This should be a new Olympic event. Synchronized gaming.
Dude, like Glenn
There you
passed
go.
out at the same exact time on both screens. Yeah, so here is what I was referring to. So well, first we're gonna have some flashbacks into some vague, you know, storytelling on Serge's part. But yeah, so we're gonna have the ship's gonna be taken over by some ghosts, and we're going to be locked into the ship, and the only way to get out is to find the key. But unfortunately, the key bearer, you know, neglected his responsibility and just accidentally, you know, in the chaos of the ghosts invading, handed off the key to someone, and he didn't know who it was. And unfortunately, we do not, as runners, know either. It is randomly assigned between, it could be 1 out of 3 NPCs. There's technically a 4th option, but ideally with the speed run, that won't be a problem. And again, it's about a 2-minute, you basically have to take a forced encounter with each attempt at talking to each of these 3 NPCs. Oh, and then here is the second of the 3 fights that we run away from. But yeah, that is the RNG we're talking about, and why there's such a huge disparity between the first key and the third key. We'll see what happens here. Do either of you want to tackle the ghost dance coming up?
Yeah, so in addition to the ability to run away from fights, right, because you can see all the enemies on the screen, we are able to dodge monsters, right? But what Deeds was talking about, the key, you have to talk to a specific NPC in order to actually have the key be placed with one of the potential outcomes. And to get to that NPC requires doing this. It's not insanely technical movement, but it is a little bit tricky, where you have to circle around a couple of times and talk to this pirate who's blocking the way through. Oh my gosh, Hobbes, there we go. he went around a couple extra times, but he got it. So you can see that we're basically just continually moving while proccing the conversation, which allows us to get the guy out of the way, ask about where the key is. That allows us to actually get the key placed, and now we can go and investigate. So you can see Corporate now is checking the first key spot. The second key we actually ran past. So if they both get first key, we won't see the second key, but we have to get this chest first anyway, because we need the panaceas within it. So we come here first regardless, because if this is the first key, it allows us to skip. It allows us to skip any additional fights.
Yeah, a big hurdle with the ghost ship is the fact that you have all these ghosts that just kind of spawn seemingly out of nowhere and will chase after you. And the doors that you have to open to maneuver
nice
this
red.
map are so... Ew, that was nice. Yeah, these doors are one of the worst. You heard us complaining about bats earlier being one of the worst things in this game. The doors are a very, very close second place. They're kind of finicky opening up, and if you fail to open them up right when you get to the door, those ghosts will catch up to you, and you will get an unwanted extra encounter. But yeah, it looks like we're on second key for both racers. This is still very close.
Oh man, so you can see that Corp is getting a little bit unlucky in his encounter, like, enemy packs. Like, you can see he has a lot of these fights where he has like one extra enemy in them. This one isn't too bad because these little deadbeats aren't that dangerous, but they can be really slow if the fight goes long enough, because they start casting elements as well. So you can see that Hobbes is already out of his fight while Corp is still kind of stuck in it. And so these are the like hidden components that can like surprise you in terms of, well, why did I lose time here? And it's like, well, because you had to do an extra element or had an extra enemy, and it can be really slow.
Oh no, and Hobbes got third keyed.
All right, well, let's see if Corporate got third keyed. This will be, if Corporate gets the key here, this is a big difference maker. Yep, wow. Okay, so you can always tell based on the dialogue procs, because they're different when they have the key versus they don't. So that's a huge difference. So Corp will probably pick up, even though that fight was slower, he'll probably pick up about 40 seconds here, give or take. Although this is a really good fight for Hobbes.
Yeah, getting the skeletons. Yeah, if you get first key, there is a little bit of a money worry to consider. Although if you're at the third key fight, yeah, getting the skeletons at that point, which give you the least amount of money, it's definitely the fastest way to go.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is still incredibly close, and there are so many different things that could have an impact. It's just definitely that's probably the biggest swing that we've seen yet. But absolutely, there's in no way, shape, or form does that mean that this is even close to over. Oh, okay. So Andy W3321. Anyone who doesn't know, is a long-standing runner, member of the community, knows a ton about the game, and called out. So there was we call it a lag star. So it's an interesting special type of star that actually means that not only did Glenn just get a stat up there, I believe that means he'll get a +2 on the upcoming fight against the Deadhead, because that strength proc only happens when you get a +2 later. It's a weird way that the game operates, so it's a pretty uncommon outcome, but it's I guess like one of those kind of like, well, if you're gonna make me do the third key, at least you get a little bit of a benefit out of it.
You know, your little consolation prize.
Exactly. It's like, all right, well, if I'm gonna have to do all this time, at the very least, it's 3 extra strength on one of my, it's 3 extra stats on a character, so that part's nice.
Although it's honestly really hard once you start doing a lot of runs for this. You know, it starts to kind of sorry, let me start over. Once you start getting, you know, first and second key on your splits and you're running this a bunch, yeah, third key can kind of be a little bit of a demotivator. Oh, we're starting up on the Deadhead fight.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting one here, because this first action with all the little deadbeats combining into the Deadhead actually uses its turn. So unlike most boss fights where you aren't totally sure what it's going to do for its, like how quickly it'll go, because it's that first starting AP is random, we actually know what the boss, like how long it's going to take for this fight to start. Or excuse me, for how long until he is going to take an action.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really touch on that. So we did mention earlier that the boss does have an AP count. There's a known minimum value of how often, when the boss will likely go. However, the start of the fight, the boss cannot. Basically, unlike mobs, the boss cannot go first usually. And so the starting count is kind of an unknown factor. We basically have to wait until the boss does his first attack before we can really pay attention to, you know, how much stamina we can spend before the boss goes again. And that's what PH is referencing because of the start of this Deadhead fight. This is kind of the few times we get to know that.
Yeah, and so you can see they're using slightly different strats here. So CorporateImage is using a version that does a dash and like a turn white and then a dash and slash. And then Hobbes is going to be using a couple of cure pluses. So much like many other Square RPGs from the era, when you cast a curative element on an enemy that is undead, it actually, 99% miss. That sucks for Hobbes.
Gosh.
Ugh. So there you go. To Doc's point earlier, right? It's always at the most inopportune time. That's a bad time. Yeah.
I also noticed that you know, just that amount of strength there. I mean, when Corp was hitting, he was doing like 110, 111. Hobbes was doing like 100. So that's like extra damage adds up after so many hits. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that's part of why Corp went for the dash and slash strats, is because extra strength allows for it.
And there's the +2 on Glenn.
Yep. So the good news for Hobbes is that his Glenn is very, very strong at this point, which is going to help him make up some of what otherwise might have been short damage in Mount Pyre on, like, maybe not the Shaker fights, but like on the Fire Dragon fight. So Handy talking about, yeah, Hobbes overmashed, so he didn't get the first cure off before Dark Breath. It ended up not costing him too much, because with that miss, it's interesting. So he actually might have, so given his strength, what that means is that he actually probably would have still killed, because he wouldn't have needed the level 2. So actually not getting the cure plus off correctly actually probably cost him a fair amount, because otherwise he would have ended that fight before he needed to do that second level 2 attack.
And corporate is just doing the final, this is pretty much the last shopping trip we do. Hobbes just finished. And then we have to make sure, ideally you want to walk through this lava here because it does deal damage to your characters. If you decided to save Kid, it actually takes you on a whole alternative side quest line that'll give you an item to freeze the lava so you don't take damage. We just run through it, and because we have to menu anyway by, we gotta equip Lena and Glenn with some new elements, and Serge. So we just do the healing at the same time there since we have to menu anyway. And it's so important that you do this menu because coming up here with the salt and pepper fight is one of the longest text boxes in the entire game. So get your W's ready in chat. And you would have to...
trap element.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Salt is using a trap element here, and he will trap Pepper's big attack. The problem, of course, is that Salt is now explaining, well, we can't use it until after the battle. And then, yeah.
I love the, it's like his shaking, like that's his yes, very good. Right, W's in the chat, or our boys.
It's like he's so flustered, he's stuttering.
PH, have you gotten around to counting how many W's are in the chat?
You know, I actually haven't. I can't help. I'm always just so emotionally invested in enjoying the moment with Pepper there. It's very hard to worry about anything like numbers in that instant.
The world will never know how many W's.
Right. But yeah, so now we can see we're starting to use Eagle Eye and Strengthen, right? These buffs, and that Deeds talked about a while back. The center character becomes really important because it kind of snaps to the center character when you use those buffs, and it's really, really, really valuable to be able to add them as quickly as possible because we will use them a lot. Ooh, nice crit.
Ooh, nice.
I missed it. I was actually trying to pause the screen with the W's on it so I could count them, but I missed it.
Oh, that's funny. So Yuri, the heal all there, it's not really that we need to use it in a fight. It's that when you have an element, you can use it if you have enough element grid power at the end of a fight, right? So here as CorporateImage, exactly as O'Malley is saying. So like at the end of this fight, Glenn has like an element level of, let's say, 3 right now. And so any elements that he had, ooh, and Corp got the gauntlet. Oh my gosh, he is so strong. So I'll adjust that, give me 1 second. But just to finish off that note, the idea there is that so any healing elements that Glenn has up to element level 3, he could use at the end of the fight automatically. But yeah, so
heals.
yeah, but Deeds, Doc, if either of you want to talk about the gauntlet drop there.
Oh yes, so no, you take it, Doc.
No, you take the gauntlet drop.
Oh, so this salt and pepper fight honestly has pretty much one of the most dense drops in the whole game. We pretty much use anything they drop. So even their common drops with the vest and mail will put on Glenn and Lena. However, they can also potentially drop another Dragoon Gauntlet, which, if you remember the chest that we talked to 20 times to get that gauntlet, basically that's the 10% chance of getting a second one in this salt and pepper fight. And you can be really strong doubling up on those gauntlets on a character. There's also a chance of getting a Skyjin ring drop, which is also more magic for Lena. So again, very important drops here. Either way, you equip whatever they get, but Corporate just is already a really beefy man, and this is just adding on to that strength. he got the power glove drop on top of these 2 gauntlets. So
the only drawback to getting the rare drops there would be the slight loss of defense, and you just hope that you can kill whatever it is fast enough that that doesn't come into play.
Yes.
Yeah, so Corporate right now is taking on, and Hobbes is starting here, the Fire Dragon fight. So this little guy looks relatively unassuming. He is extremely scary. When we do kind of like community races, often the first agreed upon safety save is before this fight because he absolutely can rip a run. He is really fast. His like floor AP, that value is only 6, so he goes very often, and he has a lot of really, really damaging attacks and a bunch of HP. So the good news is that like on Corporate's side, he actually also got unlucky in that he got a very bad start, but because his characters have such good stats, he's kind of able to weather it okay, and he really didn't deal with the most dangerous outcome, which is when Lena dies very early. Oh, he also, okay, so he went for the high roll on the second turn and got it. So you can see here on Hobbes' side, so Lena was the one who got hit with that fire breath attack, and she only has 30 HP now. So she has gotten the Ice Blast off, but there's a possibility that if she's attacked again on the next round, she could die.
Yeah, and because this is a red versus blue fight, there's a viable alternative strat of using cures in place of the aqua balls or aqua beams or the ice blasts that Lena has. You'll still get benefit from opting to cure your characters, because again, this is one of the scariest fights in the game, and so just making sure your characters stay alive is going to get you through, in some cases will get you through a fight faster than, chancing it and then having the character die on you.
Right.
Although again, chancing it and having them attack someone with lots of health, that's a risk, it's player by player if they want to take that risk.
Now it's time for Corp to fight the 3 Devas. This fight's not very devastating, but it can troll you a bit.
Exactly.
This is another one of those where there's 3. You're fighting up against 3 independent bosses that have their own AP counts, and unlike other fights, where again we're able to kind of control what we do before, with full knowledge of when the boss is going to go. It's really hard to do that in this fight.
Yeah, and so one of the biggest determinants for kind of like a really good fight or not is how quickly Zoa goes on Corp's side. He went fairly early, and Corp missed on, oh my gosh, 417 damage. That is so much on that X-ray. Yeah. His characters are so strong. Wow. But
for context, we only need to do like 300 in there.
Yeah. Marcy has I think it's 289 HP. So the 289 or 283. But so there's a pretty good chance we're gonna, there it is, there's the Geronimo. So this is kind of what we're hoping to skip because it's fairly damaging, but also kind of slow and knocks one of those greens off the field and puts a yellow on the field. So it's unfortunate. It's not really that big a deal, especially again because Glenn is so strong. Well, and just crit, easy.
Oh my god.
But it's just one of those things to like keep an eye out for. But he's doing fine. 340 damage, HP damage crits generally will work out pretty well.
Yeah, so Marcy just got knocked out on Hobbes' end. Again, because she's just so fast. Obviously the Fire Dragon is the fastest, but because she's so fast, getting her out of the way is really important. And then we're just trying to chip away at Zoe on Hobbes' end, and Corp just finished the fight, so...
Lena has a magic of 17, so he's good for the tower.
Yeah, he's in a really good position.
That's true, yeah. Glenn is showing Serge how it's done on Corp's side.
Yeah, essentially, at this point, we're going to shift over. So Glenn was kind of our damage dealer here in Mount Pyre, and before that we were basically using Serge as our main damage dealer, and now we're going to switch over to Lena being the leader of our party. We're going to be switching off to magic strategies. Our next fight coming up will be a Dragoon fight, Star fight actually. And will give us our first and pretty much only summon for this category, the Frog Prince. And the Frog Prince is blue innate. And in order to summon in this game, you have to use a character with the same color as the summon. But in order to get the summon off, you have to make your field, all 3 element colors on your field effect screen, has to match the color of the summon. And this is why Lena was so essential to get, why it was so essential to say no to Kit at the very beginning of this race, is because Lena is our best blue magic dealer, and because Frog Prince is a blue summon, that's why we use Lena. And that's why we use her for the... We're essentially getting off Frog Prince is the main strategy for the rest of... well, for most of the portion of this Fort Dragonia dungeon here.
Yeah, and that's a big part... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When I played this game casually, I always thought that elements somehow took 7 of your turns. I didn't realize that the AP system was different from the stamina system. And so I was thinking, oh man, if I use an element, that's all 7 chances for the boss to go. So I didn't understand until actually I started watching the speedruns that elements actually only move the enemy turn up 1. So there's time in there for us to build up a field and to get off a summon.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I think this game isn't always like super good at explaining some of that stuff, but once you learn the way that the combat system works, it's actually it makes sense and it's fairly well defined. It's just not easy to figure out what's supposed to happen. So pretty good fight there on Corporate's side. Looks like Hobbes is getting Acacia Breath, so I think he had a less advantageous early start. And one other thing just to kind of call out, because we mentioned it earlier, but yeah, what Deeds was saying there on the on the blue innate, right? Because the power of this summon is really, really high, and that's such a big part of why we have to have Lena, because she is really the only blue innate that we get who has a very good magic stat at this point in the game, unless you want to go get Nikki, who actually has really good magic but has a really slow route, or if you want to use Pierre, who is of course the best, but unfortunately his magic is not great. But it is possible to actually make your way through this with Pierre.
Well, you know,
I wouldn't
Pierre
recommend
can't fit any magic under that fabulous hair of his. There's just no room.
This is true. So O'Malley also pointing out Lena's not only got great magic, but also is really high strength on Corporate side. Earlier in the tournament, we had, I think, was it Kizu, right? Who had,
yes.
Yeah.
So Lena.
It was really something else. He had his Lena got every single stat gain and finished the run. I think it was like 22 or 23 strength, which is, I don't even know what the likelihood is of that, but it's really not high. But you'd be like, yeah, you could actually have her just doing physical damage at that point, not even worry about the magic. She was really strong. 25, even better. There we go.
Oh gosh.
So that is above average for Serge. Serge's average strength at that point in the game is 24. So that would have been like a good Serge strength on Lena. That's amazing. There we go. Never forget. Yes, pardon me.
Coming up here is the I know many a casual player.
Hobbes went for the bat skip and got it. Sorry.
Oh, nice. Yes. No, that's yeah, that's actually one of the bat skips that like if you time it just right, you don't have to pause and wait and be safe. But yeah, this menu. Actually, Doc, you know the word that I can't ever remember, so you explain this puzzle. Or I just don't remember what the word is for the order when you swap out the party word, and you say it every time on whenever you're commentator, and I just never remember what it is.
I think he.
Oh, did he have to?
I think he might have stepped away for a second, but yeah. So the puzzle itself, the key thing here, right, is that the trick is you have to not only change your party members, but also use this blue platform on the ground to swap, like, when you hit select, it changes who's in front, but it keeps the order between them the same. Yeah, I think Dine's saying that the different permutations. Yes, so it changes the sequencing to actually reorient who is in front of whom within your party. So you need to do both. Casually, I could never figure this stupid puzzle out. I literally just wandered around and tried every single thing like 10 times. It eventually worked, and I had no idea why. I remember. Yeah, as Handy's saying, also that bat skip does require both a little bit of RNG and perfect movement. And then Zan, I think Hobbes might. So he and Corporate, as Deeds and Doc both mentioned, they did make an agreement not to do guard skip, but Corporate encouraged Hobbes to go for Cybot skip. So we'll see if he makes that attempt. Should be interesting.
Of course, all of that will be after this gloop fight coming up here.
Yes, very true. We have one more bat to dodge. This bat is a really, really big jerk. It's the one that Corporate is dealing with, that Hobbes is going to deal with in a second. It's tricky because most of the enemy hitboxes in this game are actually based on character shadows, not on the character model of the enemy. So that bat that's flying around, his hitbox is his shadow, but you can't actually see where his shadow is on the floor, which makes it really hard to avoid.
Yeah, this is honestly the worst bat in the game if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, and the key, I think there's a couple folks in the chat talking about it. The key is right now. So basically, the leaving Mount higher, the difference was almost exactly 45 seconds, and that was probably just about the difference between the second key with a 3-enemy fight and the third key that Corp got versus Hobbes, respectively. So we are really, really close still. The giant gloop fight is interesting because we are working to try and get an Ice Blast off, and then really just get everything set up for a Frog Prince, with Lena having Genius, which is a buff that increases her magic, and then Magnify, which increases the damage that all elements do. Giant Gloop is kind of a bro here, because Giant Gloop likes to use blue elements, and so helps us get this field all blue. And if you actually don't get it fully blue in time, Giant Gloop will use a blue field, which makes the field fully blue for us. So
nice
it's really, yeah, he's really nice. And that was a tremendously quick fight from Corp. Really, really good.
Yeah, I kind of view this, I kind of like the order of how the speedrun chooses to route this Fort Dragonia. You can actually enter the fort hallways in any order, but doing the gloop fight first, I kind of treat it as kind of the tutorial fight of the Frog Prince strategy tutorial fight, because it definitely does, it's not this easy to get off for all of the future boss fights moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of interesting the way that, so also on Hobbes' side, so Lena got taken in, unfortunately, so she got frozen. So this is why we actually buy the medicine, is for this fight, we need to be able to potentially cure Lena of being frozen, if that's what ends up happening. So now Hobbes just needs to refresh his stamina, and then he'll be able to get the Frog Prince off here as well.
Oh, to clarify star levels, so something that we haven't touched on at all is in order to do a summon, it actually costs a star as well. But with the speed run, we don't really have to worry about spending star points. You can renew them by going to an inn, but again, we only summon so many times in the speed runs. It's not really that much of a concern for speed running when you use up a star level to do a summon.
Yeah, and it also gets automatically replenished in a couple of other instances when, I think when your character ostensibly, passes out, which happens a couple different times, I think that also causes it to refresh, because it's like the things that would cause the same effect as going to the inn.
So
All right.
CorporateImage demonstrated the normal way to get through that Cybot. We'll see if Hobbes is able to do the Cybot skip.
Yeah, and while Hobbes is getting there, we can see Corp had to dodge. So these paperboy enemies, which are kind of the paper mache looking things, they kind of can phase in and out of physical existence pretty much whenever they feel like it. And that means that every once in a while they will catch you more or less regardless of your movement. You can do a lot of things to try and like minimize that chance, but if they want to get you, they will. So, Corp just got
he hit
caught.
one. No.
See, and you can see it.
You just had to say that, PH. You just had to.
I did. I have no excuse. But it's like, it's so fast. Like, you could see it. It came in and out of, like, materialist, you know, it was immaterial for just a fraction of a second there. It's so tough, because you don't know how long they're going to be possible for you to run through.
Going for it.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like he's
Oh!
That's not good. That's really bad. There is no way to run from this fight. You have to fight. Well, I mean, you can run from it, but the Cybot just stays aggroed on you and sticks right there. So there's no way to run away. You have to take the fight.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's a very tanky mob to fight. This will be...
Yeah, this is super slow. Honestly, the best that I've seen is, I think I saw Carbon once get like a really quick frog prince off and get through this in like a little over a minute, but that's like the best that I've seen. It's like a huge time sink, pretty much no matter what you do.
And so if you're back, Doc, can you remind me what the super academic term is that you use for the first puzzle in here when you swap the party order out?
I'm sorry, I had to step out just for a second.
It's killing me.
It's an engineering term, and the idea of your X, Y, and Z axis being cyclic or anti-cyclic.
Cyclic. Okay, thank you.
I.e. left-handed or right-handed.
Alright, well, Hobbes got through the fight. Oh, man.
Well, and on Corp's side here, we can see he's dealing with Taurusoid, who's kind of a big jerk. Taurusoid does a bunch of damage and loves to use elements every turn, which means it can be kind of tricky to get a summon off, right? The one thing that is nice about Taurusoid, though, is Taurusoid is really slow. He has a really high AP value. Oh my gosh, dude. Hobbes got trolled hard by the paperboy there on the left, too.
Yeah, that one. Ugh.
So Corp now working to get his field fully blue, and then attack once more with Lena, and then do the Frog Prince. Yeah, so he's good. So that's the thing is that the danger in that fight is if if Taurusoid does get a chance to go again, he will pretty much always interrupt your attempts to get the field fully blue. So if you make a mistake through that fight, you pretty much have to run and reset the fight. There's no real... I mean, you can try and muddle it through, but he has a bunch of health as well. It's generally going to be better to just kind of restart it. So good fight from Corp.
And Hobbes was able to dodge that second encounter there. He didn't have to get into that one.
And continuing good stats. Also, there was a question a little earlier around skipping Viper and Glenn's strength. We will get to that. I won't forget, but we'll get to it as we get a little bit closer to Viper. But it did bring up, because on Corp's side, Glenn is very strong. Glenn is already at 25. And Serge is actually in very good shape too. Serge is 23 strength. So Corp has really solid stats pretty much across the board. All right, so here for Hobbes, you can see that Taurusoid attacked his Lena. There are a couple of options when that happens. One is you can just risk it and let it go. The other option is that you can try and heal Lena, because the danger is that if he attacks Lena a second time, he will generally kill her. So you're effectively risking that he doesn't do that, which Okay, cool. He didn't. So this is, again, one of those trade-off spots where it's like there's a few different ways you can handle things, and it's faster not to heal again, but it does have that downside if you get a little unlucky, right? So you're always trying to make those decisions.
Yeah, especially because, again, a cure is a blue element, so it's not it's still helping with building the field up to blue for the Frog Prince. But because you're not getting the damage off, you're not. Sometimes Frog Prince might not kill if you're not able to do the damage blue elements versus the cure.
Right. Well, and it's also it uses a little bit more stamina, and it lowers your element level. So it makes, like, when we saw Corpse fight, there was a little bit tight. If he had missed once or twice, he might have not been able to get the Frog Prince off. That was because he used actually a cure level 2. He used a cure plus on Lena, so that uses up a couple of the element levels that you've been building up. So it's all part of, it's all interconnected in the different ways that fight can go well or poorly.
Yeah, I love the comment in chat. I would never play chicken with Taurusoid, and that's I think with new runners, the Taurusoid fight is a huge hurdle with trying to again, if you're off on your AP and your stamina, then yeah, you're, as PH was saying, you're not getting it off, and sometimes it's better to just run away and reset. Or defend, let them go, and then try doing it in another round after they get an attack off.
We don't play chicken. We play leapfrog instead.
There you go.
As Corp would like to say, look away now if you have an aversion to clown creepy faces. This is the son of a gun fight.
Alright, so he got a good start.
Son of a Gun's another kind of troll fight. It really impacts what you can do, or which strategy you're able to do with Son of a Gun based on when they do their first attack. Because what they'll do after they do their first attack in their happy face mode, he's gonna do an attack called Kissy Wissy, which potentially can put one of your party members asleep. And obviously, if one of our party members is asleep, we're not able to get all of our blue elements on the field and the Frog Prince off, especially if Lena goes to sleep. And that's why we wanted to pick up the Panacea from the chest on the ghost ship, is to help, potentially wake Lena up and get that Frog Prince off, if that were to happen.
In this case, Corp had the slower sun, so therefore he was able to skip that whole kissy-wissy stuff entirely.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
and something that you saw him do there that we'll see, hopefully Hobbes gets a similarly good fight, but he used turn blue on Son of Gun twice. And you might say, well, why am I casting turn blue if I'm going to use a blue element, right? I thought that it was something that we didn't want to do because it would lower the damage. The way that this game works is that if you use a turn element on someone twice, the second casting cancels out the first casting. So because he uses turn blue on Son of a Gun 2 times, it actually means that it cancels it out and his damage will still be normal. Because it's a really fast element, we use that because it's one of the quickest blue elements that we can cast.
Yeah, if you know your Frog Prince is going to be super strong and is kind of standalone, the Frog Prince is enough to kill Son of a Gun. So doing the fast turn blue element versus a slower like Aqua Beam is definitely the way to go if you're able to.
So now we get to see see if Sun is nice to Hobbes as well. Being nice means not kissing you. Uh-oh.
Well, so Hobbes got the slow start. Yeah.
Well, corporate kind of, that soldier was not wanting to move out of the way to go down those stairs.
Oh, so here's an interesting one. So on Corp's side, you can see that Dragoon is walking up the stairs. That's actually fair. It happens, but it's fairly unusual. Normally, we have to try and come up with a little bit of a creative movement to dodge it. But when he goes up the stairs, you actually don't. You just kind of wait for him, and then he gets out of your way.
This one's your fault, Deeds, because you were talking about having to use the panacea, putting Lena to
Aw.
sleep, and that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, so you can see that he has to kind of unfreeze Lena, and now we've got everyone has, you know, we have enough time to get the rest of the stuff off here. So he'll still be able to use both turn blues and then a cast from Serge, and that'll finish it. Excuse me, cast from Serge and then a cast from Lena.
Meanwhile, Warp is now in the Bunyip fight. This is our red/black monster in the tower. It comes in two phases. So this first one is red. You'll want to watch out for an attack after Magma Bomb, so we need to get rid of it soon. And Lena will do that with an Ice Blast. Hopefully. Good.
Yeah, and it's a little bit scary too, right? Because we use the Magnify, and so that the Magnify makes all elements have more power, right? Not just ours. So Genius increases a single character's damage, Magnify increases everything. So when the enemy has some powerful elements that they can do as well, it actually gets a little bit spookier because those elements will also get powered up. Not a great AP start here for the second phase. So interestingly enough, when you have two-phase fights like this Bunyip fight, each phase actually has its own starting AP value, right? Like how much stuff we get to do before they go. And in this instance, it went right after Corp had his Surge use a 2/2. So that means that the second phase, at the point that it started that part of the fight, was 4 or less. You obviously always want it to be as high as possible. Depending on your other stats, the amount of stuff that you have to do to finish the fight after the Frog Prince, can kind of vary. So we'll probably see, yeah. So there's really, given that starting AP and the fact that he missed, there was really no way to avoid this Graviton.
So now we just have to build up the element levels on Surge to get this Lumiere off.
Oh, Hobbes.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, that's a really awkward spot for that guard, because that one part of the pathway there, the pillar kind of pushes you back towards where the guard is. So trying to dodge around it gets a little bit tricky.
I've been caught by that pillar many a times.
Yeah, me too. All right. See, so Hobbes there didn't get quite as with the Dragoon going up the stairs, he didn't get that, so he tried to handle the dodge and got caught.
Yeah, it's I don't think we've mentioned, but yeah, every extra encounter adds roughly about 20 seconds or so to your run. Just the time it takes to initiate the fight, select the run away, get through the victory screen. All that's about 20 seconds or so. So yeah, just getting into about 3 unwanted encounters, you're adding a minute to your run, unfortunately.
Yeah, Hobbes is, it's tough to say exactly, but it's probably like a good 2.5 to 3 minutes at least that's been dropped due to including the Cybot skip and then the encounters in here. Because he's had a really, really good run otherwise, but just a couple of unfortunate fight outcomes and a couple of unfortunate issues in some dodges there.
Yeah, and the third key fight as well.
Yeah, that did not help either, for sure. Yeah, so Corp, obviously that's a cutscene that we've never seen before, right? Totally
Nope.
unfamiliar.
Completely new.
Right.
Perfectly normal.
We should totally go through this door. Yeah, this is all just a dream. Don't
Right,
worry about
exactly.
it. There we go. I'm
All
just so
right.
nervous about Hobbs's Bunyip fight, but we're getting into the Viper fight. Finally, we can talk about
Yes.
that.
So exactly to that end, the question was raised about skipping G-Force, which is an attack that General Viper does. If you have a 24 to 26 strength Glen, you can do it if Viper gives you a little bit of good luck on both the first and second turns. If you have a 27 strength Glen or above, you can do it as long as you get good luck in the first turn. Yeah, exactly. Not go through the door. So let's see if if Viper waits one more turn here. Let's see. Oh, so close. So probably will not be able to skip it without a crit. Would have if Viper had waited one more turn and Glenn had gotten a chance to attack, then he would have been able to skip the G-Force. Because his Glenn is very, very strong and has an extra gauntlet right now. So that extra gauntlet is basically you're treating your Glenn like he's his normal, whatever his stat is, plus an extra 3. Yeah, exactly. Come on, Glenn, crit. You only had one job.
I know he did all those crits earlier in the run.
Yeah. So still, oh man, 3 foot. That is so much. His Glenn is doing so much damage.
That was a lot of pretty much overkill on Viper almost.
Yeah, it definitely was.
All right, Hobbs
And
just
Serge?
beat Bunyip.
So, okay, so Corp got a Dragoon Gauntlet there, so that is the common drop is the Gauntlet, the rare drop is the Mithril Mail. We affectionately call it the Handy Drop after Super Handy, whom you may or may not have noticed in the chat here. He has super good luck with getting the rare drop, which is great, right? You would normally want to get rare drops, so yes. Oh, don't be mad, Handy, we love you.
Aww. And just a reminder, so this is the final fight in this run. The run ends at the end of the victory screen when the screen goes black.
Yes. I do think there's a pretty good chance, as a couple folks have mentioned in both the chat and on commentary, Corp may continue this run. It sounds like he bought the Diminish, which is part of the purchase sequence that's required for late after Lynx 2. And this is going to be, I think, slower than his any percent PB time was at this point, but he's pretty strong. He's got an extra gauntlet. He could choose to keep this going and see if he's able to get a PB. So we'll see if he keeps kind of continuing through how he plays normally. There's a pretty good chance he's going to try and take this to the any percent.
So Hobbs is entering. He's about to go into the Viper fight. Probably around the time that Corporate's going to finish this off.
Yeah, and this was a insanely close race for a really, really long time. Even after Corporate got a little bit better luck on the second key versus Hobbs's third key, it was still coming out of Mount Pyre. It was 45 seconds. It was really close. I think the going for sidebot skip and missing was a pretty big difference maker there, because Hobbs certainly could have obviously, like, he ended up not getting it, but he could have pulled back. And GG's to Corporate.
Yeah. Let's see what his time is here. So it looks like
Really,
2:11:51.
yeah,
That is
really good
insane.
time. Really,
I
really
think
good
Hobbs
time.
must have known that he was behind by a bit and needed that kind of a catch up. So I think that's
Bad
why
IP
Hobbs
start.
chose to do it. So.
Oh yeah, no, like, and he feels like he has a setup that works for him relatively consistently. It just, in this case, it didn't work out, unfortunately. But Corporate under a 212 in a race setting is an extraordinarily good run. Really, really great job by Corporate.
Yeah, and even though he is behind on his PB time, but just like PH was saying, he's so strong at this point. Like this is kind of the dream to be this strong. Well, and the two gauntlets especially, with more so than the power glove drop. I would be curious if he does decide to keep going. It definitely is still even though he's behind is on his PB. This could he's got some time
He's
save potential.
he's only behind by a minute. That much
Yeah.
strength.
Yeah, I think knowing Corp is a big believer in taking runs for, like, if you look at his, I don't know if it's this PB or the prior one, he was behind like as much as 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then ended up either his current PB or his PB right before this one. He was at one point that far behind, so I know he's a big believer in pushing through when he has like even a reasonably good start, and this is much this is beyond that for sure. This is definitely better than just reasonably good. This is very solid.
All right, Hobbes also got the Dragoon Gauntlet drop, so he's in a good position. If he wanted to, I guess he likely will not choose to continue this run.
Yeah,
final fight.
Yeah, finishing it out. So we'll see the start of the Lynx fight here. He got a really good starting AP. The biggest thing about this fight is you're basically getting Glenn buffed up and then kind of rotating back and forth between Glenn and Serge on physical attacks is primarily the main fight, the main focus here. So make sure that you don't accidentally strengthen or eagle eye on Serge, because the game actually forces Serge into the middle for these fights up here. So even if you had Glenn at the front, the game pushes Glenn out of the way and puts Serge in the middle. So it's very easy to lose track of what you're doing and just mash through and strengthen or eagle eye Serge. All right, yeah, so confirmation. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no. Do we have confirmation? Oh, yes, we do. Yeah, Corp is going to continue his run, so this is going to be very exciting. I actually don't know. This might be the first time in the tournament that we've had a runner decide to continue their run from the race.
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure this would be the first case.
This is the first one, yeah.
Well, it's well deserved. Corp, it was a great time. Also, congratulations to Hobbes. So coming through here, finishing up. GG's.
That was like Hobbes got a 2:15:34, which I want to emphasize that is still a great time. A 2:15 is a very amazing time, especially again with all the extra encounters that we've already kind of gone through several times in our commentary. So this is still an amazing time. This is definitely one of the closest matches. I mean, there were frame by frame simultaneously, multiple points. There's several times that's happened in this run where they just matched up perfectly with how close they were.
Yeah, and I think we've got our winners side of the bracket. Carbon and Rom are going to be racing sometime in the next day or two, and then that should set us up for the finals, which should be an amazing competition. So congrats to Corp for making it into the finals out of the losers bracket. But I think I don't know if we've got our runners are going to be joining us. I think maybe here momentarily, but
Hobbes might.
Yeah, absolute huge GGs to both Hobbes and Corporate, and congrats to Corporate on the win. And also congrats to Hobbes for making it through to the semis section, right? Like getting out of the like round robin by itself is not easy. Yeah. So really good job from both these guys.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, this is typically the point in the game. There's a big old cutscene here. So this is one of the few breaks that runners will get in an any percent run. That's typically, again, around 7 hours long or less. So Corp's probably stepping away just to get his break in on here.
Yeah.
Hobbes, if you'd like to join us in here, you're welcome to.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Hobbes.
Hello, sir.
So thank you for the commentary.
Congratulations on being the first person to actually go for the Cybot skip.
Well, I
Hobbs
think I
has, yeah, you've
yeah.
successfully done it once before in the tournament, actually. I think you've been one of the only people, unless I think Azala might have done it too, but uh
Yeah, I may have I may have tuned in at one point and I was like, yeah, my stats are kind of low. I got third key, so I was just gonna like I don't know. I just went for it.
I mean, you guys, I don't know if you took too close a look, but there was a fairly long stretch where you guys were literally, it wasn't even just like in the same fight, but it was like the same selection, like like Mr. Little Ugly was mentioning here, like the X strike on the ghost ship, you both hit Fargo at the same time with the X strike. It was out of control how close
Oh,
this was for a really long time.
oh, we were that close that at that
you
point?
were extremely
Yes.
close. The entire, basically, the ghost, the third key difference and corporate's second key was the very first time that there was like a no, like even even a smidge of a noticeable difference between the runs, and then like it was crazy.
Yeah, you know, sucks to get third key, but you know, if I'm going to get third key, I definitely want to get those types of fights because that was great.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't
honestly,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't really think I lost too much time, probably only like 30 seconds, 40 seconds maybe.
Yeah, it was that's what I was going to say. It was about 40 seconds even at the end and I don't know if you look, but Corporate has like an incredibly good Glenn and very good Lena, but at the end of the Mount Pyre section you were about 45 seconds behind even with all the other stuff.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, I
Yeah, it was
definitely thought
still
I was
really
gonna be a lot farther than that.
No, it
Yeah,
was
no,
still
it
really
was
close.
so close.
Yeah. It was a
Yeah,
really
Somebody
No, and
missed a side pot skip,
confirmation
so
from Azala. So Hobbs is, I think Hobbs, you are the only person to successfully do the Cybot skip. Even if not today, you so far you're probably the only one to do Cybot skip in the whole tournament. So
hey, Corp, welcome and
yeah.
congratulations.
So thank you, thank you. So
Thank you so much.
normally, oh,
Oh, wait, what?
go
GG's
ahead.
Hobbs. Sorry, I was a little late.
GG's Corp. It was a fun race, man.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
interesting.
Good luck
Yeah,
on
I
the
heard
rest
a
of your
few
run,
things.
Corp.
But,
yes,
Yeah,
any thoughts on your end, Corp? Before
this was an interesting run, except my whole entire team needed glasses because they couldn't hit anything for the most part.
So
But luckily
many-
they got a whole bunch of strength to kind of make up that difference. Power glove run, it's always cursed.
right.
Can't believe I got it in the tournament, but a pretty solid run overall. I don't think I made any huge mistakes anywhere besides like nah, I don't know.
You
Yeah,
guys both
pretty
played
solid
really
the
really
whole
clean.
time. Oh yeah.
It was we were saying, I don't know if you were looking, but like literally even on the ghost ship, like you guys, the X strike hit Fargo at the same time. Like it was literally no difference between the two of you. You got a second key, but with a 3 enemy fight. Hobbs got a third key, but with really good fights. So even after that, it was still really, really tight for really up until kind of like, frankly, the Taurusoid split. That was basically when it kind of spread out.
I see.
Because, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
because Hobbs decided to just go for it there, try to make up that time, and
Yeah, typically I'll never go for it unless I'm 100%. And I definitely was not 100% with that movement. So, yeah, I shouldn't have
Yeah.
done it in hindsight, obviously, but oh well.
I could kind of tell because you moved up and out and then went back in. Like I feel like normally once you feel like you get it, you don't kind of slide around like that as much.
Yeah, exactly. So I started doing a different method, and I don't know why it hasn't been as consistent. It hasn't been as consistent, so I don't know.
Oh no, but it's new, so you know, there's that.
It's new, yeah. I'm testing it out. It's all right.
Yeah. Oh man, but Corp, dude, how did you feel? Like you said, like your whole team needed glasses. There was like a couple of those fights. You had like really good setups, really good stats, and then just could not get a hit. Like the bold fight. Oh my gosh.
That was the worst. Like so often in this run, I would do 3-3, both missed. All right, 3-3 again, both missed. All right, keep going. Just power through, I guess.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. But especially my favorite part was the Pierre kills because
Yes. Yes.
I feel like
That's what-
Kier killed almost everybody in the Viper Manor in here.
I tried. I would have kept it all going, but you know, he was only so strong. A mere 7 strength to hit a guard. And I mean 7 points of damage, I mean, to hit a guard.
How were your stats in general?
Serge was good. I think we had a power glove, but he left Viper Manor at 15, 16. He kind of stopped gaining strength around Fort Dragonia, but Glenn was great. He got 16 strength. We got the Dragoon Gauntlet drop. He was just gaining strength. And Lena, she came in the party at 14 magic, and she just kept getting magic, so we had no problems with stats. It was just
Nice.
hitting the enemies, and AP starts is what it boiled down to. On my
Gotcha.
end, at least.
Yeah, I think I feel like my Surge he was always like a little behind, but then he would get a +2. He got 2 +2s throughout the whole run. I think he was 14 leaving the manor, which is fine. It's, you know.
Yeah, you had 2 +2s. You had the mini star with at the beginning, and then you got the lag star with Glenn on Deadhead, where you got the +1 on the mini stat up, and then the +2 after Deadhead.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever gotten that before.
Wild.
But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that definitely helped out with Glenn because I was a little worried at the beginning. But and then Lena just kind of stopped at 15 magic. Like she was doing okay at the beginning, and then we're behind on damage on Gloop. But that was the least of my problems around Fort. Yeah,
All
GG's
right.
Corp. It was fun.
Guys,
GG's.
GG's. Great
GG's.
job. Really good runs.
GG's to all the runners in the commentary. So Corporate will go on to face the winner of Carbon and Rom in the finals, which will be next Sunday, which will be the 26th of September. There won't be a tournament match tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be hosting a 6-person, 3-team Chrono Trigger race. 3 members will be doing yes level shell skip. 3 members will be doing no level shell skip. Whoever team finishes first wins. And this tournament was mostly just because we got the Lynx 2 tournament as the intro category. But this has also been leading up to the second year for the Chrono Series Relay, which will be happening October 2nd, starting at 9 a.m. on RPG Limit Break. We'll be opening up the Radical Dreamers, going into Chrono Cross, and then going into Chrono Trigger 100% glitchless. So be sure to check out for that. You actually get to see a full run of Chrono Cross. And so the Chrono Trigger race was a little bit of an add-on. We had a misscheduling with the admin team, and got a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I think it should still be a fun showcase. So with that being said, I'm going to throw everyone to Corporate. For anyone that hasn't seen a Chrono Cross run, definitely stick around to watch the whole thing. Hopefully the game doesn't decide to turn around and be mean to them. Thank you everyone for coming out and supporting it. Once again, always much appreciated to RPG Limit Break for lending us their channel and letting us broadcast this, the runners and the commentary for their time out of their day for helping with the event. We hope to see you tomorrow. If not, hopefully we'll see you next week for the finals. Everyone have a good night, be safe, and we'll catch you then. Stream is cut.